Hello and welcome back to Pod Popper's Place. I'm Penny, and today I wanted to share with you some card sketches from Kendra's Card Challenge using these fabulous papers and stamp from UnityStampCompany. I have loved Pooh ever since I was a child. I have lots of fond memories of Pooh, and I'm sure I had a Pooh stuffed animal when I was growing up. And so I'm going to create the first 5 sketches from Kendra's Card Challenge number 17 that is currently going on through the end of March. So there's opportunity for you to still create 15 cards of your own to enter to win some fabulous prizes. I am creating card sketch 1 here with lots of papers from UnityStampCompany, and I am going to make these all very vintage and antique looking. I have already stamped out about 8 Winnie the Poohs and colored them off camera, and every single one of them and every single piece of paper I'm going to be adding some vintage photo ink to give it that old world look. Every one of these cards is going to be a graduation themed card, as during the month of June we usually have a lot of graduations to attend between our church and local community, and so I wanted to create these with this Pooh that I thought was just adorable, and so I decided to go ahead and use Kendra's card sketches to be able to create 15 unique cards, and I will have those ready to go this summer when it's time to hit all those parties. I really had a lot of fun creating these, and if you have any questions about what I did during the video for different card sketches, please let me know. Right here, the card sketch does call for these little strips. However, I really didn't want to cover up that paper, and so I decided to leave those off. Here I'm pulling up the little corners so that I can tuck these frames behind the edges of the corner and get them really nice and tucked up in there. I want to have nice clean edges, and so I'm just tucking them in there so that I can figure out where I need to trim those at. I have a die that cuts out these thin frames, and these actually worked perfect to create that border look around this triangle. Rather than putting another layer behind the triangle itself, I'm just creating that same look with these frames. If you have any framing dies, these are really handy to have just laying around in the basic colors so that they're ready to go. And I usually put double-sided adhesive sheets behind them when I cut them. So not only are they ready and available to use when I need them, but they are also ready to stick down as well and make it fast and easy to work with. After deciding where I want my Pooh Bear to stand, I'm going to add this stamp sentiment from one of my Spellbinders stamp sets in my stash, and it says about the greatest adventure, and obviously graduating from high school or college is setting people off for a great adventure of life and what comes next. So after I add some ink to my Pooh and get him nice and antique looking, I am completely done with that card, and I'm moving on to card number 2. Card sketch number 2 has these strips of paper that are interwoven, and I'm going to use this stamp that I got on clearance at Hobby Lobby. It just creates a fun, distressed, vintage looking background, and I'm going to stamp that again in also the same ink, and then I'm going to trim that out so that I can just use that centerpiece, and of course add some more vintage photo ink to that as well. I continue to add ink to all of my papers. However, because the Pooh paper from Unity Stamps is already very vintage looking and it's a little slick, it really doesn't stick that much on the tops, but I still add it to the edges because I don't want those white edges to show and kind of be in stark contrast to all of the antiquing that I am doing with the card. So here it is a little tricky to get these laid out. You don't want to glue everything down really completely solidly, and actually if you have some press and seal and laying that out first would actually work really well so that you have them already laid down. I just was too lazy to get mine out, I guess, this day, and so I just did some partial gluing and then lifted the edges up to glue the rest of that down. So I also then went back to my die that I had originally cut it out and stuck it back in there just so I could trim off the edges to the same shape as the die was, because it kind of has a distressed look to it. I have this thin piece of cardstock from Hobby Lobby that's been around my craft room forever, and it's a 12 by 12 scrapbook sheet. And I cut it down, and then I antiqued it, and then I also put it through an embossing folder that has kind of a distressed look. And it's so funny because it made it like feel like tissue paper, like really, really thin. So I am gluing this on to just a layering piece of cardstock. It's just white cardstock that's kind of thinner that I use for layering pieces on. It's not a good card base cardstock, but just great for layering. And of course, I'm going to stress out my little Pooh before I put him on there, but I'm trying to figure out what sentiment strips I want. And I love that this little Pooh is like looking up. So I'm always trying to find different words of congratulations to add to my cards here so that he's looking up at those words. I just think it's an adorable look, and I want to keep going with that kind of look to my cards. And so I used some more distressed ink on both of these and added those, and then my card here is also pretty much done for card sketch number 2. If you would like to join Kendra's card challenge, please look in the description box below, and I will have the information of how you can find all that information out and get the free PDF for all the card sketches. They are really super helpful to get just going and using card scraps or full 6x6 pads of paper and getting things out of your stash to add to those, and perhaps submitting those to have a chance to win some fun prizes as well. So now I'm on to card sketch number 3. Once again, I cut out the center of my black sheet because I just need that as a frame to go around the outside as one of my border layers. And then I'm, of course, distressing all of my papers again, just around the edges and on that white so that it's doesn't show. And I glue my base down. And last time I had added a piece to the background. I don't think I do it on this one. I'm not sure why. But sometimes when I cut out those center pieces, I like to stick a scrap piece of paper behind that just to give it a little more stability, and so it lays nice and flat. I am looking to use more of my frames here in black. They don't go long enough. They're the rectangle doesn't quite go as long as what is on the card, but I am going to add some other details so that you don't really notice that it doesn't go all the way down. So once I add that black strip and then the other strip on top of it, as in the card sketch, it's really not really obvious, I don't think anyway, that I didn't have that frame going all the way down. It just looks like part of the plan. And then here I'm using the stamp that came with the Winnie the Pooh set from Unity Stamps. And it talks about a grand adventure here as also from Winnie the Pooh. And I did stamp it in white, and I stamped it quite a few times trying to get that white to really stand out. I was afraid the black wouldn't really pop because it's such a dark background. So I used the white, and it's okay. It's not ideal, but it does work. You can read it, so it's okay. I don't know that I would have done it that way again. And then I used the cover of the papers. I don't know. Have you ever done that? Have you ever used the covers of your paper pads and cut anything out of that? I did that today with several of my different paper pads from the Winnie the Pooh and then the newspaper sentiment pack. And I just used that for a strip. So now I have card number 3 done, and I'm moving on to card sketch number 4. Card sketch number 4 calls for you to cut circles out of this strip. And this paper, when I cut it according to Kendra's sketches, it didn't really give me a good place to make circles. There's none of the pictures are showing very well. So I decided I'm going to use my tag punch instead of circles, and I wanted to cut it so that I could get some of the pictures of Pooh and his friends there. And then I noticed when I cut these 2 strips off that they match, they line up. So I decided I'm going to glue them together, and I'm going to punch them out into a tag. And I guess you can tell that I glued the 2 strips together. but it's not super obvious. They line up really well, and I thought it was just a fun and kind of more quirky, antique kind of thing to do anyway. So I actually really love how this card came together. So now I'm laying out everything how I want it, but I do need another layer behind and then a strip for behind those tags as the card sketch calls for. I do bunch up this little strip as I'm putting on some of the ink, and so I decided I'm going to run it through my embossing folder and give it a more distressed look, so that wrinkle that I created is now more intentional. After I have the main pieces glued down, I really wanted to be kind of keep going along with this vintage theme. And so I pulled out these star brads from Paper Studios at Hobby Lobby, and they are really old. I don't know how long they've been in my stash, but they matched perfectly for this vintage theme, and I just punched a little hole for those and just put those through there, and they do make it pop up slightly on the ends where the brad is, but not bad at all. So I'm just going to go ahead and glue those down. I thought about popping them up on some foam tape, and I really love doing that, but I was trying to think if I had to mail any of these, how I can keep them as flat as possible, and so I'm not having to worry about that extra postage or special handling for things with foam tape. And even though I'm not using foam tape, I am having a little bit of unevenness there because of the tag being slightly lifted up with the brad. So I'm using a few scrap pieces of paper to tuck behind the end of the So Proud of You so that it lays more flat and isn't being bent. And that finishes up my card sketch number 4, and I am moving on to card sketch number 5, and that will be the last one for today's video, but come back again really soon and I will show you 6 through 10 and then also 11 through 15. Of course, I'm going to continue with my vintage look and just ink everything up and get it nice and antique looking, and I'm doing that to all of my papers, even these yellow ones that are not part of the vintage collection and just from my stock. And then I get tired of using the brush. I'm wearing that thing out already, and I decided to use the edge of my ink pad, but that does not do as good of a job trying to antique the front part, just the side edges. It works okay on. The last thing I'm going to do here with my inking is I'm going to ink this frame. This is another one of those frames, but this is the all in white. It's just a plain white one. So I'm going to use my ink pad to get some distress looking on there, and I'm also going to get out some black because the vintage photo is just this brownie brown color. I wanted to add some black to it as well, and so I'm going to get out some black and add that to the frame as well. Then I'm going to get out another piece of just the layering cardstock, and I'm going to put this frame down first. The problem with things like this is that when you're putting just a skinny frame on, they don't always lay down as straight as you would like. I'm trying really hard to get everything straight, but as I put my background piece on top of that, I will see that there is a slight edge that is showing, and I can't it can't really move it anymore. The glue is down and it's good and stuck. So what I go ahead and do is I take out this blank blender pen from Stampin' Up. It's kind of like having a Copic marker with no color, but it's not a colorless blender, so if that makes any sense. But anyway, you can take ink and just use it on from an ink pad or whatever and paint things out. And so I take it and I kind of just get some ink down into that little gap there where the white background was showing. And because it kind of changed some of the color around there, I decided to just go around the whole thing and just add a little bit of more of that vintage photo just around the outside of the framing there, so it all looks a little more cohesive. I'm going to once again use the same stamp that I used previously that came with the Pooh Bear, and I'm going to ink it in black this time as it will stand out better on this lighter colored background. I was unsure about this big empty space in the center. I just didn't like how empty that was there. So I was trying to figure out what could I put there. And so I got out my teeny tiny little die cuts that have numbers and letters. And the numbers worked well. I could put 2025 at the bottom there, but class of was too big. And so I cut the numbers out of one of my paper pad fronts again and layered those with some black cardstock to give it a little bit of a shadow. I had hoped to maybe put it on this banner, but I end up scrapping that and just putting the numbers directly onto the center piece on the front of the card instead. And then I still thought I needed class of 2025 on there, the class of part, and I wasn't sure how I was going to do that. And so I pulled out this stamp set that a dear friend gave me a long time ago, and I haven't used it a lot because it's kind of like one of those things you have to practice with to get them right. It's cursive letters, but you have to layer them to connect them, otherwise it just looks kind of odd. So I'm always hesitant to try them, but I was going to go for it here. So after getting my 2025 down at the very bottom there, I am going to attempt to get class of right above that. And I probably should have spaced things out a little bit better before I put the class of on there. It does get a little bit tight, but I think it works out okay. And this is a homemade card, so it's just the way it is. Hopefully people really enjoy the Winnie the Pooh sentiment and little guy there and decide to keep these, as these are graduation cards and they're a little more special than just maybe everyday cards. And I know that's probably a complaint of yours or mine if you're a card maker, that people just maybe throw them away. But I'm one of those people that I keep pretty much every single card I get, even the non-homemade ones, because usually it's from someone I care about and they've written something inside the card as well. And everybody's not going to be here forever. That's a guarantee in this life. And so I keep those cards because one day, if that person's no longer with me, I can look back at the card that they gave me and be reminded of their words and their care for me and how much they meant to my life. I appreciate you being here and watching this whole video. It means a lot to me, and I would love it if you would let me know what you think of my first 5 cards in this set. Please be sure and check out the details to Kendra's challenge if you would like to participate, and come back again real soon for cards sketch number 6 through 10. It would also mean a great deal to me if you would decide to hit that subscribe button and come back again really soon. Bye-bye.